What's it like when you have this character and Monica, you kind of carry this character in its entirety, and you have different directors directing you. How does that go? Because I imagine they have different takes on him, right?
I think mainly they'll defer to you in that regard.
Right.
I guess because in a way you're bridging all 7, and so say someone coming in later, they'll want to hear what it is that you're needing to do, and so it's a conversation, and they may come in with a thought of like, I think maybe in this moment that needs to be, so there could be sort of some fine tuning, but I guess the big kind of structural...
No more looks, more words.
More words, yes. There was a lot of that, yeah. You do need to say those words, yes. No, you can't cut them, yes, yeah. So it's and that's true for a lot of long-form TV, is that it's not quite the same relationship as in film, where a director, say like Nicole, she's written it, she's filming it, she knows exactly more than you do what's going on at each moment and is really across everything, and it's a slightly different relationship with a director coming into TV.
What about doing theater, since you are on stage now at St. Anne's in The Hunt, which is an incredible performance, and I'm in awe of you that you're here on your day off, because that is I felt like emotionally wrung out by the end of that. How is it for you?
It's been an amazing time at St. Anne's Warehouse. It's an amazing theatre. If no one's, whether you come to see ours or just go down to that theatre, they're doing a great job there. It's really exciting stuff that they're bringing from all around the world, Europe. It's the first time doing theatre in New York, which has been, a dream of mine for many years. So many big breakthroughs in theatre acting were made in this town. And it has informed, acting in my country.
You guys informed American theatre too, okay?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's, but that whatever that flowering was, the
Thank you.
In the 50s and 60s, the method and had huge impact on the history of acting. And so, to come back with a piece of work here has all that for me. The audiences have been really thrilling. It's felt like an amazing room. So I feel very lucky to have, because it's about 4.5 years ago since we did this play in London, and the pandemic happened, and because St. Anne's were interested in taking it back then, but then a lot has happened between, and we were, that's an understatement. So we were lucky to. Yeah, it feels great that we've managed to bring it back to life.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Ideally, I imagine any play or any work of art or whatever is I don't know, it's kind of porous what it means depending on when it's on stage.
Absolutely.
And this show in particular, I imagine, is very different, depending on where we are in the world.
That's right. When we did it in summer 19, we were much closer to the Me Too movement. But just to explain that, the heart of the story is a child who wrongly accuses a teacher. But that's not to give too much away, but and so that issue, I know that, for instance, the Almeida were nervous about that when we did it first time. But it also felt like why it was partly interesting to do, because that isn't really fundamentally what the play is about. It's more about the group and the individual, and how groups process these moments of crises. And and what's interesting about it, playing it now, is I think the theme that's come out most strongly is that the ability of a group to sort of choose the truth, alternative truths and all that kind of stuff, which obviously is an idea that has become much more prominent since we first did the play. So you're absolutely right. The political moment and really does inflect the work. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, we have some audience questions. While filming Manhunt, was there a certain place that you visited that you found especially interesting?
I imagine they're thinking like some historical thing. I didn't really have
Yes.
that. I mean, we were shooting in Savannah, and Savannah, Georgia has an amazing coastline, and so I would go and walk those big beaches quite a lot. It's amazing, amazing coastline. And there was it was around the time when it was the turtles come onto that coast and bury their eggs. And so all the way along these beaches were these sections which had been sort of roped off and carefully protected because all the eggs were in the sand and they were waiting for them all to come up. And I remember going a few times to see, because it was around, towards the end of filming, it was around the time when sometimes all the little ones would come out and then run to the sea. I really wanted to see that, but I tried a few times and there was nothing going on. So. My sense of time was
my
off.
call time.
Yeah.
Let's move
Hey,
this
I've
along.
gotta go.
Yeah, exactly. So no trips to Ford's Theatre.
No trips to Ford's Theatre. The schedule ended up being so full on, really, that I was planning lots of sort of go and see all the places that we were sort of telling stories about, and it didn't work out.
You've got time. You've got time.
Yeah.
You're just 50. Tobias just had a birthday this week.
Thank you. Yeah. Way too old. Way too old.
No. Do you approach acting on TV, film, and stage differently? And if so, what is the most different approach that you take?
I don't think I do. I mean, for me, it's the same thing, really. Some people talk about it being very different. I don't really feel like that. It just feels like a lens thing, But I mean, if you came, you've seen the play. I don't feel that performance. And obviously, it's a small-ish theatre. It's only like 320 seats, something like that. So you're able to be pretty intimate in that. But I feel like we're able to be very intimate in that theatre. Yeah. So that's a theatrical performance. But I'm really like making people come in, and I think you can do that. So it's really all the same stuff. It's just sometimes, you just have to sort of turn it up a little bit. It's I like my theatre pretty natural. So yeah.
Yeah, he's so your character Lucas, right, is he also there's a lot as there's a lot of just him thinking, and it does feel very intimate. Yeah. So much so that at times, in the same way like the camera can zoom in on you in this show, you really feel like
You still want to reach into it. Yeah. The central character in the play is he's quite a remote man. And so he's, and in a way, one of the sort of central tensions of the whole piece is he's been accused of this thing, and at some level he doesn't defend himself very robustly. There's a kind of a sort of a frozenness falls upon him, so in a way that's sort of a deeply untheatrical thing. Trying to communicate someone's kind of like I'm stuck and I'm the thing, but without words and into a theatre was one of the kind of challenges of doing the play of this. But,
was there anything that you did not know of the Lincoln assassination and the aftermath that you found interesting?
Yes, so much. I mean, the big
was
one...
it that he jumped on the stage? Because I was obsessed with it.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that there's various theories about the fact that did he break his leg or didn't he break his leg? What happened to his leg? The whole leg gate. But there was so many vivid, insane details of the story. Sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction. The one that I found always really stayed with me is I had no idea that Lincoln was assassinated just days after the end of the Civil War. I didn't realize it was so close. And that his death was then like, oh, maybe the war isn't done. Like, it's all up for grabs again. And the sort of, I guess the sort of maelstrom of it, of how close all these things were. So that really stayed with me. I had no idea.
Yeah, that also, and I think that's in this first episode when there's a real sense of like, oh, this is the Confederacy. There's not a surrender. There's not. Exactly. This is part of the war that we thought we had just won days ago.
Yeah. And I mean, the other detail is that the theatre was completely full.
Yeah.
So
and
you
he
get
was
a
supposed to be there.
And Stanton, yes, Stanton
yes.
had it, yes. Well, he was invited, Lincoln asked him to go with him, yes, which is obviously in the show. But yes, there's a completely full theatre, a president gets shot in the head, then that person runs out the back of the theatre and entirely disappears for 12 days. It speaks to a very different world. It speaks to a world without CCTV, or you know, there's this sort of like, how does that happen? And in a way, a country much less populated. It was, you know, I mean, I imagine at the time, Washington was a small place, and as soon as you were out in the fields, then you were gone. And so it speaks to a sort of agrarian idea of America, and I find all that sort of both very interesting and very touching, you know. It's, and also the sort of intimacy, clearly, when you hear stories about the fact that people could just go to the White House and go and chat to Lincoln, that sort of deeply intimate idea of democracy, which is obviously long gone. And I guess this speaks to that he, you know, the theatre was full, there's the president, he's watching the show with us, great, let's watch the show. And, you know, I guess one of the great tragedies of that story is that could never happen again as a result of what John Wilkes Booth did.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have any unanswered questions about Lincoln that you thought, I'll go see Cola Scola in O'Mary, and that will answer questions?
Yes, I've heard about this show. I'm not going to get a chance to see it, but no, I mean, is it amazing?
It is.
Okay.
Has anyone here seen it? Yeah. It is wonderful.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. How much of American history did you dive into to prepare for this role? And did anything fascinate you, especially fascinate you as a British citizen?
It's all pretty fascinating. I mean, watching the documentary about the Civil War, I don't know, it's a deeply, inherently dramatic story, and also the photographs are incredible. There's obviously that famous photographer, and it was the beginning of that medium. So the images are just so arresting, transporting, and I guess, I mean, that Civil War is iconic for a lot of countries beyond, a lot of the world beyond America, because, you know, it was in which, it's the crucible in which, you know, your democracy was kind of founded and forged. So, yeah, I mean, that's partly why I wanted to do the job, I think, was to sort of just jump headlong into this period. Mm-hmm. The look of it, the themes, the natural epicness of it. It feels like this a country is being formed live, you know, it's sort of in the infancy, and all that sort of stuff is, it gives you the sort of that sort of tickly feeling about history, yeah.
You've done a lot of period piece work, and your next movie is very contemporary, right? Your Formula One movie with you and Brad Pitt. How was it being, I mean, that is a different world.
It is a different world. Absolutely insane. Yeah, so I mean, I've only did a couple of days before we got shut down by the strike, but I was at Silverstone, which is the racetrack in the UK. It's absolutely insane. This sort of huge, multi-million-dollar circus just arrives, and I knew very little about cars. I'm not really a big car person. But these cars go very fast, and they're very sleek, and they're very long. I'm very glad I'm not having to drive one.
Did you try it?
No.
Okay.
No, they didn't. The insurance, I think, was, I mean, I have no idea how they're insuring Brad Pitt to drive a car, but that must cost a few pennies.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, he's allowed to travel, I think. I think he's allowed to drive at 140 miles an hour. You're not allowed to go above it. That's still pretty fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is impressive, and that must have been another, because you were filming, you know, in racetracks with like people there to see races. Was that another kind of, oh my gosh, overwhelming? All of these people are watching.
Yeah, I mean, what's very interesting about the way they're filming it is we're given this unbelievable access to Grand Prix around the world, and so we shoot them. we're sort of like a multi-million-dollar film, but shooting with like a tiny unit because we're just in amongst. We're not in control of it. So I was shooting on the grid of Silverstone before the race. So the grid is live, all the real drivers, all the real celebrities, everyone's, all the mechanics are there. And at the back is, this car and a couple of, our crew, and me and Javier Bardem waiting for Brad to walk through, and then we do this scene. And then we do it like twice, and then we have to get out of there because the race has got to start. And it's sort of very guerrilla. It was like, and there were sort of thousands of people here. So it was like theatre on steroids. It was absolutely bonkers.
Wow.
You did not want to forget your lines. You're like,
yeah, no.
Not me.
No.
Yeah, so it was I've never done anything quite like it. It was extraordinary.
That must be, that's interesting that even when you say you haven't done anything quite like it, do you feel like the industry sees you as, oh, he's good for this role? And is that a challenge then? Because I feel like your characters, you play thoughtful people, but they're pretty different.
Do you think so? That's interesting to hear. Yeah, I will go out to seek very varied people necessarily. I try to choose it on the material and the interesting if it was a character, but range is less interesting to me. I tend to do more drama, but I think that's interesting. You do feel there's a range. I think there's a range because you as a person just change, and so therefore, like we were saying earlier, what bubbles to the surface and
right.
what you then draw out of it becomes different because you're different.
But I imagine after you played, like after Outlander, you got,
a lot of baddies, yeah.
A lot of, yeah. Do you feel like
psychopaths?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a good psychopath.
I feel like you recently, it must have been in the Manhunt interview, mentioned something about that, I'm not going to be in the final episodes or whatever, and it made quite literally international news.
Did it? Oh, God.
Oh, it sure did. Yeah. And I love that I catch you up on Kate Middleton, on your own news. Once that got picked up and went everywhere, did you hear from anyone over at Outlander? Like, we could shoot something and get you in there.
Interestingly, no. So, I don't know what that says. Guys? No, I don't. Yes, there's various bits of that I didn't know that had happened. And no one's called me to sort of say, let's do something. So, I think, if I'm totally honest, I think I would be reluctant to go back. Mm-hmm. Not because I didn't love my time on it, but I think I really felt that those characters were very complete and where they had got to. And so I'm not quite sure what that story would be to sort of revitalise those characters. And I think in a way to do it properly would probably require sort of more film time than I've got at the moment this year. Mm-hmm. I imagine they would sort of do like an episode or something, and in a way I'm not sure I'd want to do that, because in a way we got to such interesting places with those characters, and I feel so proud of that work that I'm happy to sort of wish them Godspeed finishing this beast of a show and finally finding an end, and I'm sure they'll do it. I'm sure they'll do it beautifully. Yeah.
Did you know that Sam Heughan auditioned for your role?
I didn't know that.
I just found that out.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. For those two, the split?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I know.
That would have been a very, I don't know. What, and Mia's journey? I'm not sure that would have, I don't think we'd be sat here.
Do you, now that you're the play...
Did he audition and then they go, oh, can you come back and read for Jamie? Was that what the order of it? Or?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, we really like him, but this isn't quite the right part. And then,
yeah. They were like, we like him, but he's no Tobias.
Or just, no. But I mean, what I like about the show is I couldn't do what Sam does in the show either. He's brilliant at what bringing that person to the screen. He's done a wonderful job, and one of the things I think is really strong about it is that have a lot of very confident, authoritative actors contributing in lots of very different ways. From Duncan McQuarrie to Graham to Katrina. It was the beginning of there's a lot of really interesting people came together, and then a lot of us weren't that known, and it's sort of and you can't really imagine those characters done by anyone else.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
When you were early in your career, when you did an audition, were you like, oh, I know, I just got this role? Like, were you a good auditioner? No, often sometimes you come out and go, oh, I did great, and then it would just be like you'd hear nothing, and then other times you're like, that was just, and then of course those are the ones you get offered, and so it's weird actually. It can be hard to read what's going on. Yeah. But it's easier now that when you're doing more self-tapes, in a way you have a chance to sort of make what you want to make, and then go. That's sort of changed the maths of that, because when you were just going into rooms and they were just sort of pressing play on a thing, and you were sort of like, you just do your thing. Who knows what it's looked like, So. Did you ever regret turning down a role?
No, not really. No, I haven't had any. No, I feel pretty good about the ones I've said yes to. No real stinkers. No, I didn't turn down Bond or anything,
Right. Okay, so now I have to ask, would you be Bond?
I'm not on that list. No, that would be madness. No. I think I need straighter teeth to be Bond. We all have very straight teeth.
What about going back to theater? Now that the hunt is about to close, get your tickets now. Do you feel like this kind of scratched an itch, or you're like, oh no, now I need this more in my life?
The thing about theatre is I think you have to really feel very passionate about doing it, because it's it takes several months and you can't really do anything else, and it's demanding to do night in, night out. So I guess sometimes the bar can be a little higher for knowing that that's absolutely the show you want to go and do. I'm really excited to have done this again, and I am doing another play at the National Theatre at the end of the year. So I'm going back into theatre, having not done it for a few years now. But yeah, it's about the right material, right people.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy the variety. I like to be able to sort of swing between TV and theatre and film. That's really kind of invigorating.
Yeah. And then I guess last question, when you watched Manhunt in its entirety, what was your takeaway when you walked away from this character? And I don't know, maybe it was different when you wrapped versus when you saw the series in its entirety. But
I think I'm still quite close to the material, and so I need to watch it a few more times to get a bit of distance. I think I'm really proud of what we've made. I think it's a really interesting story to be telling now. And I'll give you an example of that. There's one shot, which I think is it in the first episode or the second episode, I can't remember, where the Lincoln's coffin is brought out of the boarding house down, and you just see a sea of African American faces there. And so the kind of real poignancy and kind of importance of that one man to that entire group of people gives, you'll know more about this than I do, but it's a very powerful shot, and it's very eloquent to what was at stake in this story. Yeah.
Which of course, as a viewer now, you look in hindsight and see the implication of that assassination, one of the implications of that assassination.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
It's an incredible performance in a long list of incredible performances.
Oh, thank you.
Manhunt premieres on Apple TV Plus this Friday, the first 2 episodes, and then weekly afterwards. Tobias Menzies, thank you so much for joining us.